Start recording this. Here we go. Okay, here we go, guys. So here is our agenda. Support, which is the second S in boss. Know who to coach, the Avon Coach Approach. Before you begin coaching, the coaching interaction. Coaching is like selling, and the coaching plan. So this module is all about the S in boss, which is support. Coaching is one way you can support your team, help them lather, rinse, and repeat all of the skills needed to grow their Avon business. So think about a person you knew. It could be a boss, a coach, a mentor, a neighbor, family member, etc. Who would you say was the greatest coach you ever knew? So at this point, you have to take yourselves off mute. So who was the greatest coach you ever knew? It is a tough one, right?
Yeah.
I know. I mean, I think back to in my past, it's like, who did I really feel like impacted, me, but besides like my parents, and I felt like my dad, was my hero and probably my biggest coach and taught me so much. And then when I think outside of family, I can think of a few teachers that I really admired, but I couldn't say that they really impacted my life much. And the person I think of, and some of you may even know her, is like Robin McGowan was my my division manager, and I think that probably of recent she was a really great mentor and coach, and probably because she my next question to you would be what made them great, and I think what made Robin great to me was that she was very just understanding and was a good listener. She was a really great listener, and she always repeated things to make sure she was clear on what I was saying, and I really love that. And I've tried to do that personally in my personal life and in my professional life, is to make sure I restate things, during serious conversations, with you, the leaders or representatives, or with my family members and my children. I try to restate to make sure that I absolutely understand the question. I love that Robin would always restate to make sure she was clear on what I needed to know. And I think that makes for a great coach, knowing that what I really needed was the way that because she was crystal clear, then she was able to coach me better to resolve the issue, or whatever it was that we were working on. I mean, she was a really great coach.
For me too. This is Brenda.
Hey, Brenda.
For Robin, she was an awesome coach for me too as well, because I have anxieties going into places, and she helped relate to her own life, anxieties like her son.
Mm-hmm.
She would give me examples of how she helped her son walk into places that are huge with a lot of people. And she related to each of us individually and got to know us,
Mm-hmm.
and was able to coach us individually on our level. That's why I think she was an awesome coach.
Well, how about that? You and I both had this, the Robin as the coach. But, what qualities would you like to emulate as a coach? What are some of the things, I shared, some of the things that Robin did with me that I want, I've been trying to practice. What kind of things did you learn from her that you would want to use as a coach?
Well, actually, of course, getting to know everybody, mm-hmm. and pulling them a little bit out of their comfort zone, so then you can understand more, mm-hmm. how they need you.
Yes.
To help their coaching. Mm-hmm. So
cool.
She pulled a lot out of all of us. It was funny. So that's what I would like to be able to do.
Great. Well, thanks, Brenda, for sharing. All right. So anybody else want to share? Any coach figures in your life that you can think of? It is a tough question. It's one of those, because I think we all have lots of people, through our life that, sprinkled, things. But there's probably, if you really, when you lay down in bed tonight, you're going to think, oh my gosh, yeah, I remember, this person, that person. Okay, we'll move on. Okay, so before we explore how to coach, it's extremely important to understand who to coach. And a recent study published by Harvard Business Review identified that most coaches spend time coaching poor performers and high performers while ignoring their core performers. So think about the individuals you coach today. You might not think of it as like formal coaching, but I would imagine there's some team members that get more attention than others. Coaching poor performers often feels appropriate because there's nowhere to go but up, right? And you have to consider, though, that these individuals may not be in the right role to begin with, based on their skill set. So have you ever spent a bunch of time coaching someone or helping someone who did not improve at all? I mean, think back, whether it's Avon or something else that you've done, have you ever spent a bunch of time with somebody that didn't improve, helping them and coaching them?
Yes, this is Barbara.
Hey, Barbara. So, what was the issue?
Well, I just find that I say to my team members all the time that, I'm here to help you, and if you, are looking, to make your business better, I'm here to assist you, whether it be, prospecting or answering questions or going through anything on the computer. And I'll have, like, a lot of times the new people will be like, oh, yeah, I want the help. And I'll put the time aside, but they just don't follow through. Like, I'll give them, I'll explain, I'll go with them, I'll show them, and yet as soon as I walk away, I know they're not following through.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep giving them the benefit of the doubt, going, well, maybe next time they'll get it and they'll try harder. But there's so many times where I just want to say to them, I told you to do A, B, C. Why didn't you just do A, B, and C? Like they don't need to do what you ask them to do.
Yes.
And sometimes it's a good reason. Oh, the kids got sick, or this happened, or that happened. But sometimes I get the feeling like they just had a better way.
Mm-hmm.
And, so I waste a lot of time with that.
Yes. And, sometimes people just, in the beginning, they're just going to tell you what they think you want to hear, and they're not really listening to what you're, you might think that they heard you, but they didn't.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So we have to figure out who are we going to work with. We don't want to work with the underperformers. They may not have the skills that they really need to be leaders. And then, aside from poor performers, coaching high performers can be easy and more fun, but some of those individuals aren't necessarily motivated to change something that's not broken. So if you have high performers on your team that are maybe top sellers, maybe already in leadership, maybe already doing a good job in leadership, maybe not. But I think it's the people in between that we need to focus on. So maybe not the low performers, maybe not the high performers, but your core team. And of course, most of you have smaller teams, so it's not going to be a big deal for you to try to figure out who you can work with. And in some cases, your teams are so small that in this particular module, you might only have one or two people to choose from, but so you need to coach all of them. But as your team grows and gets bigger, you're going to start learning that you need to leave the poor performers to work on maybe later, and then of course keep mentoring and talking with your high performers. But certainly if they're doing everything good, certainly you don't have a lot of work to do there. But the research has shown that it's actually the core or the mid-tier performers that represent the biggest opportunity for impacting your team's overall performance. So even a moderate improvement of coaching these core performers is said to improve performance by like 19%. So as your team grows, it's those core performers that are going to really drive your business to the next level. So prioritize your coaching time wisely by seeking out high potential core performers that are enthusiastic and open to feedback. There's an old adage that says, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. I'm sure you guys have heard that. But being someone that others want to follow comes to empowering individuals to be the best version of themselves. So it's not about doing things for them, leading alongside them, or even micromanaging every moment. Instead, it's about building them up and supporting their efforts and coaching them to become a leader. So when you do this, you're empowering people to become the entrepreneur they see themselves being. So that in turn can bring this amazing Avon opportunity to others. So coaching your team can help you grow your Avon business by enriching the lives of your team. Your team can support you as you reach your dreams, right? So you help them achieve their goal, and it's going to help you reach your goal. So the Avon Coach Approach is about developing trusted relationships through intentional interactions. We talked about that in the very beginning of this coaching class way back when we started. But it is about developing trusted relationships through intentional interactions designed to build confidence through inspiring a person's heart. So we'll talk about each of the elements before we wrap up this call today. But before you begin coaching someone on your team, it's important to follow these steps. You need, number one, to ask for permission. You need to get to know her heart and belief, plan to build a trusted relationship, and identify her coaching priorities. So these steps contribute to building trust with the person and respecting her needs and her wants. So once you identify someone that you'd like to coach, you need to ask for her permission. So make sure that that happens to be like a big deal. We need to ask for permission. So share why you'd like to coach her, ask for her thoughts, ask for her permission. If she says yes, then start building a relationship. If she says no, acknowledge her response, offer support whenever she needs it, and then find someone else to invest in. I want to give you a couple examples. So an example of how you might ask for permission could be something as easy as just saying, you're doing so well with your Avon business. I have some ideas that I think might help you achieve even more. I would love to coach you. What do you think? So remember, if the person's not interested in being coached, you could still encourage her to seek your support when she needs it anytime in the future. But then go find another person that would be more receptive to your coaching. You want to work with someone that's eager to learn and is receptive to new ideas. But just ask. You're doing so well. I've got some really great and fun ideas that I'd like to share with you to help you achieve even more with your business. I'd love to coach you. What do you think about that? And then you're just going to set a time and place to meet, whether it's in person or virtual. So in order to inspire an individual, you have to first find out and understand that individual. So you need to know about that person. So you'll want to understand why they have an Avon business as well as what is important to them. By asking some of these questions, you can learn a lot about the leader's heart. So what does she want in life, and what does she not want in life? Does that sound familiar? Right? You guys did this in your module. So what does she want in life? What does she not want in life? So an example could be, perhaps it's just as simple as financial freedom. Why does she have an Avon business? Maybe they do it to be their own boss, or to have more time with the family, more money for school, or the ability to travel, which was some of the things that you all shared with me. And in your why do you have an Avon business? So those were some of the things that you guys shared with me. And how does running her Avon business make her feel? Could be that it makes her feel empowered. It makes her feel business savvy or more independent, makes her feel proud. How has her Avon business changed her life in a positive way? Maybe she's made new friends with her business or has grown more confident. It's given her, it's that self-confidence that she's been looking for. Maybe she's earning money to pay for college for her kids or maybe for herself. So these are the questions you're going to ask, just like I asked of you. Oops. All right, I feel like I'm off here. Okay, I was. Here we go. Okay, so establishing a trusted coaching relationship is easy as being real, being relatable, and being reliable. So we tend to think about the 3 R words when building trust: being real, relatable, relatable and reliable. So be real requires you to be authentic, realistic, to share your story. So this leads to the individual being able to relate to you. And then being relatable requires that you listen. And I was talking about Robin earlier, how that, she did such a great job listening to me. And that's what I loved about her the most. And it just made her very relatable. So being relatable requires that you listen. So you need to be empathetic is the word I was trying to spit out there. Be empathetic, and then tailor your message to whatever their story is. So for example, if a team member is like struggling with how to manage their time more effectively, just provide guidance based on any experience that you've had. So this isn't just about leading by example, but helping your team realize that you were once in their shoes too, right? And you were able to overcome many of the same obstacles that they're facing. So seeing your success will make you more relatable and motivate them to strive for what you've accomplished. So, and then being reliable is all about establishing credibility, being consistent, and being present. So that's really important. If you lose that, then you're going to lose their trust. And then the box you can see, it says, what might a coach do that could either build or erode trust? So I want to ask that question right now. I mean, what is it that a coach could do that could erode or build trust?
Well, if they don't listen, if they don't actually understand what the person's saying, then they're losing their trust.
That's
like
true.
if you're just assuming things,
right?
So
I mean, trust builds on a slow clock, and if you're not listening, if you're not reliable, maybe you promise something to her and then you don't follow through. I mean, that can erode the relationship. So certainly, all of that is true. So thank you for sharing that. All right. My allergies are kicking my butt today. I'm sorry. I'm coughing into the speaker here. All right. So it's a great idea to talk with your team member about her coaching priorities. So you can help her in the areas that she feels are most important. So as you probably remember, we worked to identify your individual coaching priorities when you took the self-assessment during the kickoff module when we started the program. So you should consider doing a similar exercise with your team member as well. So ask her to review the competencies and then share where she thinks she's strong and what areas she'd like to work on. You can also suggest areas where you feel you can make an impact and help her grow her Avon business. So if the areas that you feel you're stronger in, then certainly, share your success and let her know that you feel like that you can help her impact that. And then by identifying her coaching priorities, you can prioritize your coaching conversations to maximize the overall impact. So what areas do you feel your team members need the most coaching? So, I'll pick on Barbara since she has, and Brenda Edwards as well. And, I see Millie's on. So those of you that have larger teams, what areas do you feel your team members need the most coaching?
selling,
okay.
yeah, a lot of them are not even hitting the 200 mark.
Mm-hmm.
So even when they start recruiting, they're not selling enough to be able to like guide and lead their team on selling.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if you don't have your team members selling, then you're not going to hit the ambassador $1,000 mark. So that's, you know, that's really where I find my biggest problem. And if they all sold at least $200, I wouldn't be just a gold ambassador.
This is true. And Millie typed in, she said she agrees with you, Barbara. I mean, it's so true now, you know, you looking back, you know, we have the module in conversational selling, and it's certainly something that you can share with your team. But I think almost every leader probably would agree with that, you know, that selling seems to be, you know, you're going to have some people that are just natural born sellers, or they have been in retail, or they've done direct selling in the past and they don't have a problem. But people that don't have experience in any of those industries, they may struggle, and they, you know, that's just an area that you're going to have to help them work on, and, you know, give them ideas. Not only, you know, with face-to-face selling, and direct selling is a whole different, you know, ball game for most. So getting them comfortable with the conversation, you know, helping them with that conversational selling. But yeah, if they're not getting that $200 order each campaign, then it's probably even a more difficult conversation to talk to them about leadership, because until they start selling at $200, they're not going to earn anything when they get to the ambassador level, unless they're you know, achieving that $200 order. So that's a big deal, right? The selling is big. But and you can see on, you know, the identifying her coaching priorities on the top right under sell, you know, it's all about networking, discovery, and communicating, and storytelling, and closing, and social selling. You know, there's a lot going on there. But yeah, I think that's a big deal. But hopefully you can coach not only the person that you're going to be working with to finish this module, but others on your team, and coach them to greater selling competencies along with everything else. So thank you, Barbara, for sharing. Mm-hmm. Okay, so once you've accomplished these steps, you can begin to have coaching interactions. So by now, you have her permission, you know her, like you know her probably really well, and you have begun to establish a trusted relationship. So she's prioritized her coaching needs, she's feeling good about your relationship, and she's receptive to you and your ideas and your suggestions. So you've got it ready to go. If trust is required to build a relationship, intentional interactions can solidify that relationship. So to build trust within each interaction, make sure you consider the following 4 steps. So number 1, identifying needs. So understanding that the individual is struggling to overcome will allow you to provide relevant coaching. The problem is sometimes it's not as easy as an individual exclaiming, I have a weakness in this area. But how can we as coaches identify their needs in other ways beyond the coaching priorities discussion that we had?
Ask them questions.
Okay, ask questions. I mean, I guess we could look at our reports, right, to see where they're selling, if they are in leadership, if they've had any appointments, right? So ask questions, review performance, and probably just observing. I mean, maybe like Barbara, you know, if you had some team members that were interested in being coached, if you were to go out with them and observe them and what they're saying and how they interact with potential customers, that probably would be helpful, right?
Yes.
Cool. All right. And then the second step is to investigate why. Why is there a need? You know, maybe the individual is unaware of what's expected of them. Are they demonstrating awareness in a consistent fashion? Or do they understand, you know, understanding the why allows you to tailor your support. So, you know, why is there a need? You know, what might be the cause? And then step 3 is to instill confidence. So what can you recommend and share that will motivate the individual to move forward and try harder? What is it? So as you're working with that person, you got to figure that out. What can you recommend and share that's going to motivate them? So thinking back to the importance of being real and relatable, how can you leverage your experience as a way to instill confidence? Does anyone have a situation where you identified like a skill gap that they worked to close? How can this help others feel confident that they can also overcome the obstacle? So how can you leverage your experience to instill confidence? You're like, oh God, that's a deep question.
Well, sometimes it's just a matter of telling the story. Like, if they're struggling with something, you might not be struggling with the same thing, but you might have had your own struggles and obstacles that you were able to overcome.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you can kind of not more or less tell your story and
Mm-hmm.
say, and this is what I ended up doing. So what do you think we should try and do to overcome you?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of get their input.
Right. So, and it's true. And I think about a lot of conversations that I'm having recently with not only leaders, but people in their downline that I've been asked to call or check on or talk to them, about the leadership program. One of the things I hear a lot is that, and I'm going to speak to the skill gap, that there are a lot of leaders that readily admit that they are not comfortable with technology. And so if you identify a skill gap with your downline, and they might say, I struggle, I don't know how to do, I'm not good on Facebook, so it doesn't matter if it's technology or any other kind of skill gap, and they talk about their struggle, and you've overcome, and Barbara just said that, when you overcome an obstacle yourself, and just telling that story, it makes you relatable, and it just makes you more real, and they know that you've experienced it. So it definitely will instill confidence in that person that you can share your story, and that's going to motivate the individual to move forward, I think, as well. But I hear a lot, and I know all of you that are on tonight have no problem with technology, but we have a lot of leaders, and I'm sure you have a lot of people in your downline. It seems to be like the number one obstacle when I'm talking to people right now. So second to selling, though, Barbara. Okay, and then the fourth step is inspiring action, and this is all about identifying opportunities for the individual to practice, in real life. So I think that's just really, really important. And then coming up with like a call to action that includes specific next steps for the person to follow will inspire action. So it's important to agree on a time to follow up to see how things went as well. So next we're going to talk about how coaching is like selling. All right. So coaching interactions are very much like selling conversations. You can see that identifying needs and investigating why the first steps in the coaching interaction are similar to the G in GROW. Get to know her needs. That's what the G stands for, get to know her needs. You should use the same skills as you do when selling. So ask good, open-ended questions and dig deeper with follow-up questions to understand even more. So instilling confidence in a coaching interaction aligns well with R and O in GROW. In order to instill confidence with your team member, you need to recommend some possible solutions. So offer stories and best practices to motivate her, and try to see that the solutions can make a difference. So Barbara, I think twice tonight you've talked about sharing stories, so there you go. It's even in the presentation. All right, and then finally, to inspire action in a coaching conversation that you're working to establish next step, which is the W in GROW. You want to work with your team member to identify what she can do to practice her skills or try new approaches soon after the interaction. So collaborate on a call to action, get her commitment, follow up to see how it went. So follow up is important not only to provide accountability, but it's also an opportunity to celebrate success. So we always want to make sure we're celebrating even the very smallest of successes. And so it's not, so not only do selling conversations and coaching interactions involve similar steps, they also require one very important skill to be successful, and that's listening with questions. And I know that Brenda Edwards was saying that. So listening with questions. As a coach and as a salesperson, it's vital to ask a lot of good open-ended questions and listen carefully to the person that you're speaking with. And again, that brings me back to thinking of Robin because she was such a good listener. So there's a broad range of benefits from effective questioning, from being able to connect in more meaningful ways to helping individuals self-discover opportunities for growth and ideas for improvement. But let's review the do's and the don'ts of effective questioning. All right, ask questions one at a time. Keep questions brief and clear, and try not to clarify or rephrase the question. This often creates confusion. Ask open-ended questions. Avoid yes-no questions by starting the question with why or how. So this prompts the individual to think for themselves. You can't get a discussion going if you only require a one-syllable response. So ask follow-up questions that don't lead the witness, and try not to answer your own question in a follow-up question. For example, what's contributing to your increase in team sales? Was it the new brochure? So yeah, you're giving the person the answer by adding that on. So all you have to say is, what's contributing to your increase in team sales? But ask the question and then listen. Don't be afraid of silence. Be patient. Waiting is a signal that you want thoughtful participation. So count to yourself while the representative thinks. The silence rarely lasts more than 10 seconds. So you guys know I do that all the time. Mm-hmm. I call it, the uncomfortable pause. Do you remember in school teachers doing that? and everybody, of course, we're doing this virtual. I can't see you, but in a classroom, everybody looks down at their desk. They're saying, please don't call on me. Please don't call on me. Oh, my goodness. All right, so active listening is just as, if not more important than a good questioning strategy. And this is where the rubber meets the road when it comes to being real. Imagine if you're meeting with me, your coach, and in the middle of the conversation, I take a call and leave you hanging for 5 to 10 minutes. How would that make you feel?
Worthless.
Gosh, hopefully not that bad. I find this happens a lot nowadays with technology. People just pick up their phone, or they're always looking at their text messages in the middle of a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So
I got it the other day with my new recruit. I was so rude.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, so it might make you feel worthless, or maybe, not important, especially. It's like, okay, I'm not that important. She got up and walked away, took a phone call without even excusing herself. I mean, really? Seriously? Oh, my goodness. Any other thoughts on that?
I do want to say one thing, though. There's a very fine line. I almost feel whenever I'm with somebody and my phone rings and I send it to voicemail, I need to explain to them, because I don't want them to think I'm just avoiding a call or screening my calls, because I don't want them to think that when they reach out to me, I'm not able to answer them. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, and I think that's great. I mean, well, if you're with somebody and they see that you might have glance down at your phone, or like in my case, I'll forget sometimes to turn my ringer off, and I might pick up my phone, turn my ringer off, and I think that's perfectly fine to say, my attention is 100% on you right now, and I just want to let you know that, when, as you are, joining my team, it's not that I'm, not answering my calls, but, I do set my priority when I'm with somebody face to face to not ever interrupt our meeting to answer the phone, and I will call that person back just like I will you as soon as I'm, done with my meeting when I'm available. I mean, I think you can explain that, and but I think they need to know that the time that they have with you, now and while you're with them in person is really important. I think that's going to, really set a really strong beginning to your relationship. All right, so be reliable and listen to your coachee. It only takes seconds to begin eroding trust. Consider implementing the following tips. Listen without opinion. Clear your head. So clear your head, focus on the person, make sure your cell phone is off, or at least your ringer's off. Reflect to ensure you are talking less and listening more. And halfway through the conversation, take stock. So, just mentally, am I talking too much and too little? And then listening is more than just hearing what they're saying. It's also about reading between the lines to understand what they are not telling you. So key takeaway here is to talk less, listen more by utilizing an effective questioning strategy and practicing the art of active listening. Let's go ahead and discuss an example. So here we have Jill, and she's a bronze ambassador who is very eager to build her Avon business. You've been coaching her for a few months. She has clearly communicated that she is having trouble recruiting new team members. In anticipation of this week's coaching conversation, put yourselves in the position of the coach in this scenario. So what questions might you ask when investigating why Jill is unable to recruit new team members? So what questions might you ask? Okay, guys, I'll start off with one, and you follow, because it's going to be an uncomfortable pause. All right, so she's just told me that she's communicated with me that she's having trouble recruiting new team members. So I think, I think I would ask her a simple question. I understand you're having a hard time with recruiting. Why do you think that is? To put the ball back in her court. That would be one of the questions I would ask her. Come on, y'all are leaders. You should have some questions.
Well, it could be just as simple as, have you reached out to that recruit, or are you just waiting for them to call you? Like, do you have a schedule as to when your follow-up is?
Yes, I think that's good. You could probably reach back. Say that again?
If she doesn't have like a schedule as to when to follow up, then suggest when she should, or set up a schedule with her so that she realizes. I just recently, and I don't remember where I was or what I was doing, but I find that I tend to do a lot of my follow-up calls at the same time. Only I didn't realize, I guess it was when I was doing the planning, how I realized I always seem to call the people at the same time as my follow-up. And so this week I've been really trying to change it up the time-wise.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard to do that if you're not even aware that you're always calling them at the same time.
Right. Well, I think I think the point that you're trying to make is that you're trying to dig down to figure out, where is she struggling the most?
Exactly.
What is exactly, what is the challenge? Is it networking? Is it communicating the value of whether it's the product or the opportunity? Maybe she doesn't have a story, or she doesn't know how to close, or social selling. I mean, it could be, it could be a lot of different things. So to your point, I think that, what your point was is just, you've got to ask, what is the challenge? And then, we could even ask questions, like about her past, have you ever had to recruit at a prior job or in a different role, and then we could try to, steer her in the direction that, selling is selling. It doesn't matter. Maybe she worked in retail in the past and is just relating how, direct selling and working in a retail store is not that different. So good. Yeah. It's just asking all those questions just to find out what the heck is the challenge. So right. as you consider how best to instill confidence in Jill, this person we're talking about, what stories could you tell to make her feel more confident? Let's not let Barbara do all the talking tonight.
Thank you.
So how, what stories could you tell to make her feel more confident? Excuse me. Come on, guys. We're getting towards the end of this little seminar. I mean, could you
give her examples?
Right. Yay! You could give her examples of something.
Right, that you've gone through, and then how many times you've had to talk to folks. Like, it takes, 9 no's to get a yes sometimes, right. And, all the true blue tried things that are helping you out during your...
Perfect. So you can talk about your past experiences recruiting. Sure. You can say, here's what I did. This is what worked for me. And you could even talk about maybe, how others on your team became more comfortable recruiting by doing, whatever it is they're doing. So certainly, that would help. So my husband is not paying any attention to my little puppy, and I know that he's walking in my dining room to pee on my floor right now. But because I respect my time with you, I'm not going to jump up and chase him out. I'll just clean it up afterwards. Stinker. Because he looked at me and walked away right into my dining room. Okay. All right. So thank you, Brenda, for sharing that. All right. So I'm going to show you, the next slide is this application guide. So let me go ahead and just bring up the actual guide. Oh, this little puppy is a little stinker. It's been 16 years since I've had a puppy. I forgot how hard it is to potty train a dog. Oh my goodness. Okie dokie. So it looks rather short, right? It's only 2 pages. I think that the hardest problem that everybody has with this is just finding the person. So finding the person to coach, getting a person to agree to be coached. So from the beginning, it tells you, test your awareness, select a member of your team that you might want to coach in the future. So this is sort of like a pre-coaching kind of little task. Before you contact her, reflect on what you know about her and answer the questions below. Contact her, discuss the questions below to determine how well you knew her heart and beliefs. So you might want to choose somebody you think and pencil in what you think she wants in life, what she doesn't want in life from, maybe the first conversations you had with her when she first joined your team. So fill this out, but then when you do get an opportunity to to meet with her, you might be surprised that it may be different. So who should you coach? So it says identify 1 to 2 team members that would benefit from coaching. Go ahead and put down both names, but for this particular task, we're just going to ask you to meet with one, and then the second person we will ask you to meet with later. So ask for permission. Write down the words you might use to ask your team member for permission to coach her. And certainly it's just coming right out, saying that, you know, you'd love to meet with her. You think that you have some ideas that you could share to help make her more successful in her business, and would she be open to being coached by you? Get to know her heart and belief. Come up with 3 open-ended questions to get to know her heart and belief. And you might want to refer back to your first module, your kickoff module, to help you with these questions. And then prepare for a coaching interaction. So read the scenario below and prepare to role play with me during the one-on-one coaching call. So we'll just do that little role play, and then identify the need. Write down what you will say or ask to identify, clarify Mandy's need. That's based on the little scenario that we will role play. Investigate why. Come up with 2-ended questions that you can ask to investigate why she's struggling. Instill confidence. Determine your recommended solution, how they'll help her improve. Come up with examples or stories of how the solution has worked for others, and then inspire action. Come up with a possible next step. And then your call to action is prepare to coach 1 person on your list by asking for permission, getting to know her heart belief, and identifying her priorities in the next 2 weeks. So our one-on-one, we don't necessarily have to know who you're coaching because more or less we're going to spend a lot of time on this little scenario. But I really would like for you to at least have line somebody up by the time we have our one-on-one. So I will just reach out to each of you through either email or text or, you know, by calling you to find out whether or not you want to stick with your one-on-one next week or if you want to put it off to January. So I'll work either way. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me. Okay? All right. So that is that. Let me get from here. Oh, guys, I'm so tired from that meeting in Orlando. Woo. Oh, my goodness. The hot topic question for our group collaboration is, who has most influenced your success with your Avon business and why? And then don't forget that the Avon Coach Approach is your role to enrich the lives of your team, developing trusted relationships through intentional interactions designed to build competence and through inspiring a person's heart. So does anybody have any questions?
No.
Okay. Well, remember that coaching is about the person you're coaching, right? Be interested, not interesting. Ask a lot of questions, listen carefully, learn her heart, and lead her to self-discover her solutions. But I'm looking forward to talking to all of you guys over this coaching module. But again, I'll reach out to each of you before the end of the week and see if you want to stick with your call next week or wait. So I'll leave it up to you. Put it in your court. But if I don't get to talk to you live, I sure hope that everybody has a wonderful Christmas. So if you're not planning on doing your one-on-one with me next week and want to wait, but hopefully we can knock most of them out. Okay. All right. So any questions before we close the meeting?
Nope.
Nope. All right. And let me just make sure. And I'm going to put something on our Facebook, so make sure you respond to my post. I'm going to put it on right now, but Gemma has worked so hard this week, and she advanced title to Gold Ambassador today. Oh my goodness, I'm so proud of her. Wow. So she's done a really great job. All right,
Yay,
friends.
Gemma.
Yay, and she's not even on. Yay, Gemma. We're so proud of you. Okay, guys, have a good evening, and we'll be talking soon. Take care.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye. Good night.